You'll find us airing our views here on the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on smart TVs 2016 forward. Now joining me as usual is Aaron William Freeland here on Candid Frank Live. Aaron, how you doing, buddy?
Doing well. How are you, Frank?
Can't complain. It's well, yeah, can't complain. It is what it is, I guess. All right, let's start. Oh, by the way, have a great weekend.
Oh, appreciate that. Thank you.
Have a great weekend. Shaky goaltending. Does that define any team recently?
Well,
Anyone that we care about?
despite their best efforts, the Maple Leafs have still been managing to win games. But unfortunately, collectively, Samsonov's and Murray's save percentages have been dropping like rocks. It's only thanks to their stellar performances earlier in the year and the fact that Murray spent a lot of time injured that his save percentages managed to stay as high as it has. They haven't been having the best starts as of late. They haven't been getting the defense that they need. I know that Morgan Riley's only been around for the past 3-4 games now, and he's solidly in the minuses. I know it's not really a statistic that anybody particularly cares about in
I
general,
do.
but it's,
I do.
it's a tough thing, man. They did not do well against Seattle. So
The lamenting the loss of three of the top six defensemen. One isn't back yet, and Muzzin won't be back anytime soon, I don't think.
mm,
The fact that Riley's back and it is it him needing to work his way into the lineup? Are those statistics irrelevant? Well, I don't think the stats are irrelevant. I agree with you that they're not as relevant as some people make them, for sure. But the fact is, he's getting beaten down the ice. He's making bad passes. He's not in position the way he should be. And that is not the way the Leaf defense as a whole has been playing until he came. So, yeah, he has a humongous, a lot of room to improve his game. A lot. It's
I
possible. I don't think it's impossible. It's just
Well, also, he comes right back and they throw him right on the first defensive pairing with TJ Brody. I mean, the Giordano Hall pairing has been consistent. They've been good. It's not anything to sneeze at. Justin Hall has really upped his play. Giordano has been a fantastic stabilizing influence. Unfortunately, it seems like Sandin and Liljegren have actually taken a step backwards at this point. They seem to have regressed a little bit when it comes to their play. They're playing like the Justin Hall of old and getting rid of that puck like it's a grenade with the pin pulled as soon as they get it. They're not making very good pass selection up ice, and they're not hitting their men when they do. This causes problems because usually those passes go down for icing, and then they can't get off, and we're stuck with them. So
well,
we'll see.
what I find I'm wondering, I don't know, but they seem to have both thrived under the pressure of playing at a higher level and playing against better players. They're having a harder time playing against players that aren't as good because they were up the literally everybody shifted down. Each pair is shifted down. You now have, like you said, and you're quite right. Immediately, Riley ends up pair number one, and then that made pair number one number two, and now number two is number three, and uh, maybe they should treat their position as if they're the number two pairing. Do you know what I mean? Like there's a psychological shift that has taken place, where maybe they've sold themselves on the idea that we don't have to play as well because now we can relax a little bit. We got to look at this from a perspective of we're much better than you know we are. I don't know. It seems to me it's not physical. I don't think. Then again, maybe it is because he's gone out twice. You know, um, Sandin has had problems. He was hurt. He went, my goodness, he went headfirst into the boards a couple of games back. Did he tweak something? And if he did, is his partner trying to compensate for what he can't do? And you and I both know what happens when two defensemen don't play their position and worry only about their job. As soon as they start worrying about the other guy's job, their job goes down the drain, and then it just becomes it's a feast of errors based on an attempt to adjust the way you play. In other words, complicate it, not keep it simple. The KISS principle, the Leaf defense before the big guys came back, isn't that essentially what they did? It was the KISS principle, and the offensive players, well, the forwards, understood that the defense needed some help, and maybe they're cheating a little bit offensively now. So I guess what I'm trying to say is it's not necessarily those players, and I mean Riley as well. Let me add him in there as well, where maybe they think they can take more chances, and there's a little more space. The gap is wider between the forwards and the defensemen, and you give an NHL forward a little more room.
Yeah, and here's the thing with Riley coming back and directly onto the first pairing. I think they get, and you mentioned this the last time we talked as well, was that they seem to think that they can get away with more. So the forwards may not necessarily come back as hard, and there's slightly more defensive lapses, and again, this is something. And as someone who's watched the Leafs collectively, both of us, for almost, would you say, 90 years now? A long time. You can see when they're slipping back into old habits, and they're starting to do that. And it's genuinely concerning, especially this close to the All-Star break, because once that All-Star break is done, there's not that much runway to get yourself back up to where you need to be. And if they start to slip, it's a problem.
This team and many teams suffer from one thing that I think a lot of pro teams suffer from. Necessity is not only the mother of invention, it's the mother of impotence. You have to believe that you have to work really hard. You can't let up at all. You have to work hard, and you have to assume that you have to work harder than the other team. And if you let up a little bit, we've discussed over the whole time we've been doing this, Aaron, that the difference between a team that's first and a team that's last isn't as wide as people would like us to think. The thing about it is that a team just has to play a little bit better, and if they do it through the whole game, they end up winning. If they let go a little bit, a team that plays badly is a team that doesn't play well enough, long enough. So you make a little bit of change, you all of a sudden, your game changes, and the results, follow to that way. So I don't know. This Leaf team right now is also doing something. I think I'm gonna sound like I'm making excuses for them, and I don't like doing that. But you do. We must realize that teams run into a rut. They run into a time when their game just they can't put it together, and this is that time for the Leafs.
Yeah, no, and they've got to find a way to get themselves out of this in a hurry. Otherwise, it could become problematic.
Maybe they should start with Marner playing more like he's supposed to. Point a game, point and a half a game.
I mean, there's that thought. Somebody's got to light a fire underneath Austin
Matthews score bunches of goals.
Is genuinely he's slacking right now, and honest to God, this rinky-dink chipping, 3/4 of a point a game we're getting from Tavares really isn't helping.
No.
Calle Jarnkrok's been a boat anchor. Thank God he's been injured so he hasn't been playing. But I mean, I find it so funny that so many Leafs fans are willing to pull the dump handle on the season based on a loss
or two
on a Thursday in January.
Yeah. No, it is tough. Forget about the Leafs. Not even talking about the Leafs. Any team in an 84 game schedule, goodness, that they're going to run into ruts. The clear thing, though, is that the really good teams nip it in the bud faster than the bad teams. And that's what the Leafs have to do. The Seattle Kraken loss was, I don't know. I don't remember the last time they had a loss like that.
Yeah, it seemed flat and uninspired. They were like day old ginger ale. It was just not comfortable to watch, you know?
Well, they need to, maybe they were out celebrating, the upcoming nuptials for Morgan Riley, and they didn't get the appropriate amount of rest and stuff like that. So I don't.
It's possible. They could be suffering
Let's
hangovers
blame
in
it on his
advance.
engagement.
They've been blaming everything else on him lately. You may as
There
well
you
blame that
go.
on
There
him
you
too,
go.
right? So
Well, we'll see. I mean, the fact is the fact is that the Leafs play a system now, and the system that they play that's been successful, can Riley play that kind of system? See, that eventually that ends up being what the issue is. If you notice, I'll say one subtle difference, and you can agree or disagree, but I'd like to know your opinion. The until recently, the Leaf defense, after they needed to reconstitute themselves, the defensemen didn't hang on to the puck long. And it
no.
seems that Riley spends a lot of time hanging on to the puck. And I'm just wondering if that's something that he needs to play more like one of six, not as the one. Do you get what I'm saying?
There
And
was a lot more emphasis on moving the puck as opposed to
quickly.
lugging the puck, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't think today's defensive players can deal with it as easily as maybe in the past. I'm not saying that Bobby Orr wouldn't be Bobby Orr at this time, but if you notice, a lot of the defensemen in the National Hockey League aren't really lugging the puck that much anymore. It's make the puck do the work. It could be, and I think it's because the game is such up tempo. A 45-second shift today, you expend a lot more energy in today's NHL than you would have, let's say, 10 years ago, if I can make that point. So lugging the puck is a very energetic, task.
Yeah, it certainly is. And the thing is, the forwards are getting faster as well. And it's everything is just that much harder to deal with. If you're trying to lug the puck out, it's much better for you to actually try to go ahead and move, because and this is the thing that my father used to stress a lot as well when he used to coach. The puck can move a lot faster than you ever will.
Absolutely.
And now that Riley's come back, he needs to recognize that and be aware of the fact that they're not playing the same take it out by hand thing that they used to do before. So I'm sure he can adapt. He's a good enough player that he can. He's just not quite up to speed yet, and I think it's been affecting them a little bit.
And the other thing is, when it comes to forechecking, back in the day, forwards used to wait at center ice. And it was a 1-2-2. You'd have the forward maybe going towards the blue line, or they'd make a passive attempt inside the zone and then just bail. They're not bailing as much anymore. All the teams, the NHL style for forwards now is to press. It's a constant full court press, and the problem with wanting to carry the puck, it's because of what your father said. The puck moves a lot faster than the player does, and if you pass the puck, then those players that are forechecking, the forwards that are forechecking so deep, don't have as much opportunity to take on physically the defenseman carrying the puck. So I guess I'm
No,
trying to
and
tell the coach how to coach. Is that what
well,
I'm doing? I think that's what I'm doing, because I know better than him. He's never won a coach of the year. Neither have I. So we're on even
you're on
ground.
even ground. It's the same thing.
Okay, let's go to the admission and talk a little bit about the news. And in Canada, um, this is completely unacceptable. Aaron, what's completely unacceptable?
Well, starting earlier this week, a picture started to make the rounds on social media, and it was for approximately 5 chicken breasts, selling for the price of $26.87 a
Yikes!
kilogram. 5 chicken breasts for $37.03 at Loblaws. Now, I understand it sounds like an incredibly high price at 26.87 a kilogram, and it is. Wholesale chicken right now goes for approximately $4.54 a kilogram. That's through chicken farmers. If you go directly to the farm and buy it from them wholesale, that's how much it goes for. These are supposedly President's Choice free from chicken breasts, which are boneless and skinless. They're designed to be raised without antibiotics, without steroids. They're supposed to be air chilled and all this other fun stuff. So that's Loblaw's excuse for charging that much. But the PCFF part, which is the President's Choice free from, is so infinitesimally small that if you're not careful, you miss that. Instead of going for the meat that you can afford, you may assume that that's the only cut that's available to you.
Wow.
And
okay.
For a lot of people who are suffering at this point in time because of inflation, lower wages, all that sort of fun stuff, this is a kick in the pants.
That sure sounds like it.
Yep.
Well, let's go to Alberta. The government won't release data on snowpack contamination from coal mines.
So this is something that environmental groups have been pushing for a while. There were 2 provincial government scientists who conducted a research into the impact of windblown dust from mines in BC into an Alberta alpine lake. They published a paper, but that was quashed. It was concluding that sediments in Window Lake are as contaminated as lakes downwind from the oil sands. The Canadian press has filed a Freedom of Information request to have that presentation released. However, that wasn't responded to. They basically got a slide deck containing information that was already largely public, minus large redactions. Basically, the government is trying to hide the results of this study from the general public at large. Alberta Energy Minister Pete Guthrie has said that there's no plans to lift the order, but he's not also specified how long that gag order is to remain in place, or has not indicated as well that it would or would not be reinforced by legislation or regulation. So,
environmentally friendly? No. Nova Scotia. Nova Scotia committee raising minimum wage to $15 an hour.
So there's a legislature committee that was put together to study whether or not they should raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. Now the committee has come back with their findings and said that we believe that the minimum wage should rise to $14.50 on April 1st and then $15 an hour on October 1st in order to manage unforeseen increases in inflation. Jill Balser, that's the labor minister in Nova Scotia, says that her department will consult with business owners and Nova Scotians before making a final decision on that, but they want it to go to $15 an hour in October as opposed to April 1st, 2024, to give families a little bit of relief that much sooner. Now, those recommendations from that committee, however, have not been accepted by the government. So they're basically saying, no, that's not going to happen. As it stands currently in Nova Scotia, about 28,000 people, or about 7% of their workforce, currently work for minimum wage.
Let's talk about Manitoba. Tory Kathy Cox joins other progressive conservatives not seeking re-election.
So Kathy Cox is a former prime minister former cabinet minister who's had a seat in North Winnipeg since 2016. In a written statement, she thanked former Premier Brian Pallister by name for promoting her to cabinet, but did not mention current Premier Heather Stefanson. Cox was removed from the inner circle by Stefanson during a cabinet shuffle just a little bit over a year ago after she assumed power. Kathy's joining other Tories who have recently announced that they're planning to leave politics, including Aileen Clark, Cliff Cullen, and Alan Lagimodiere. Stefanson, who's on vacation in California, currently said that she was aware of that situation. So we'll have to see what that brings, at least for those 4 ridings. There could be a swing in power in Manitoba.
Let's go over to the U.S. 2 years to the day. On January 6th, 2 years ago, something happened. The speaker freezes Congress again. I think by the end of today, I think he'll get his votes. But Tell us what's happened until now.
Based on the footage that I've seen from CPAC so far, it seems unlikely that that he's going to get. Kevin McCarthy is going to get the 218 votes that he needs. However, unlike 2 years ago, when the Capitol was stormed in an attempt to uphold not uphold as in hold up, but hold back democracy. The GOP are actually managing to do it here. They're currently on, I believe, their 12th vote currently for Speaker of the House. And unfortunately, Kevin McCarthy has been unable to secure the votes that he needs, despite a lot of concessions that he's made to the Speaker's post that are essentially neutering the position and rendering it powerless.
America has a reputation. I don't think it's a fair reputation for not being very good to minorities. When I say unfair, I mean once you put it up against everyone else. America on its own has a lot to do better. But it is a system. You're not going to see this coming, Eric. They have a problem with minorities in the U.S., but the problem with minorities they have is not the minorities as we would know them. It has to do with politics. For example, less people, I'm not putting skin color into this, I'm not putting background in this, just simple numbers. Less people have more representation in the United States, and we see it in the Senate specifically, right? For those of you that don't know, you get 2 senators from every state. And I think you can figure out, folks, on your own that there are some states that have a lot more people than others. For example, Montana and California, a lot of difference in people. And now what we're learning is in Congress, you've got 200 members who want a speaker, and 5 members have kicked up a storm, which grew to 19, and I think it shrunk again today. And this is what I mean about the U.S. has a bit of a minority problem, where you have the system does allow for small groups of people to take control over the majority. Now, I'm not here to say it's good or bad. It's just an observation on my part. Does that define what's going on right now, Aaron? If you kind of just at its bald facts, just simple facts without spin.
As it currently stands, the Republicans will hold control of the House of Representatives. The ruling, as it were, Democrats are in the minority when it comes to the House. Right. However, in order to get anything done, there needs to be another election within the Republican Party to confirm a Speaker of the House so that legislation can get passed and things can actually happen. This is not happening because there is another minority within the Republican Party that is preventing them from actually electing somebody to lead them. So yes, there is a bit of an issue with that sort of thing, and there are a lot of minorities in the states. And when we say minorities, again, we're not
talking race,
color here. We're just strictly talking numbers.
Right.
The long-running joke
make a lot more noise than many.
Yeah, and the long-running joke is that there's 385 million people in America and 385 special interest groups, and they all have to be catered to.
Yeah, and sometimes when they group, it doesn't necessarily, like in this case, because the Republicans won by such a narrow margin, a handful of people can be problematic, which is what we've seen, and it's played out that way. It is the way it's gone, and it's it's democracy, but I think most people assume that democracy has to do with the fact that more votes you're in, because even here in Canada, it's not necessarily how many votes, to use the term that many of you may know, which is the popular vote, doesn't always reflect what sits, and I mean sits by seats in a government. And so, even in democracy, it's a terrible thing to say, but I'm just trying to speak factual here. Sometimes even in democracy, it's not democratic. It's numeric more than it is democratic, which is the challenge of being a democracy. You have to figure out how the numbers matter. And that's why there's ridings, and those are the problem, right? The ridings create a problem based on how many people are in a riding versus another riding. And then, when they do their surveys and do their numbers, and then they realize, okay, we got to create another seat over here, like happens in the U.S. New York lost a couple of seats, South Carolina gained a couple. So it's all about numbers, but you can never. Aaron's vote and my vote, if we're not in the same place, won't necessarily be equal. And it doesn't matter whether we're talking about Canada or whether we're talking about the United States. Democracy sometimes has to fudge numbers. It just is what it is. And we're just seeing, it's the Achilles heel is what I'm getting at, that the Americans have, is that 5 people, because of the circumstance, can dictate to 200, which doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem right. I'm not saying it isn't. I'm just saying it doesn't seem right.
And it's the perceived imbalance of power.
Yeah, it's interesting. The American system, the Canadian system, kinda, but the American system believes in protecting the interests of the one against the many, right? Here in Canada, the closest thing we have to that is, that wonderful phrase that I'm not a big fan of, the clause, if you know the clause I'm referring to. it can be used in allowing minorities to rule the majority. And again, I'm not talking about race. I'm talking about legislation and how it can be interpreted and how it can be used. And to some people's minds, some in America would suggest that it's being abused by, a couple of Congress people that have decided, I want to be a chairman of a subcommittee. So make me a chairman of a subcommittee and I'll vote for you. Which seems it seems like pork barreling to me, but who am I?
There you have it.
Okay, nothing else to add. I'll hang myself.
Nope.
All right, let's talk about tech. Another reporter poses as a senator, and again, it brings Elon Musk into the fray.
So back in November, Elon had announced that there was a new verification system that was going to be put in. It was gray for corporations, gold for celebrities, and blue for people that paid $8 for it. Back in November, he said, launching verified on Friday of December, basically Friday, December 1st. There was a reporter by the name of Jeff Fowler who set up an account and tweeted with permission as Senator Ed Markey, a Democratic senator from Massachusetts. And this was all without having to be verified at all. Twitter didn't actually request that they send in any information. Now, Fowler then wrote a story about it and said, hey, guys, guess what I did? And Twitter went, yoink. Elon announced, hey, we're starting it up again. And Fowler said, okay. And Ed Markey said, do your thing. And he did it again and threw $8 at him. And it took him an extra 5 minutes to get verified. They didn't ask for any documents, nothing. So he's like, hey, Twitter's gone, yoink.
One would think that all they're looking for is the $8.
You'd like to think that maybe there's something more here, but I mean, the issue that we've got is Elon has said that this is to protect free speech. But the reality is he's making money off the fact that people are buying these stars and these colored icons to pretend that they're, verified. And it doesn't do anything to protect the integrity of reporting that's going on the platform. It just allows more people to get on there and pretend they're important and spew garbage.
Yeah, well, it is what it is. Okay, let's move back to hockey and the Maple Leafs. They're going to be playing the Detroit Red Wings. Well, they've got a chance to prove against a middling team that they can play hockey. This is going to be a tough challenge. Detroit's on a bit of a roll.
Detroit has been rolling lately, but I don't know if you're aware of this, Frank, but when it comes to middling teams, that seems to be the Maple Leafs' Achilles heel.
That's what I'm getting at.
You have a team like the Kraken come in who are, quite
test.
frankly, middling.
No, they're good. They were 12-6 coming in, I think, something like that, Aaron.
Yeah,
so they were that a little better than middling. Middling to me is 9-9. On the cusp of making the playoffs. Trying to make the playoffs. That's what Detroit's trying to do. they're having a hard time because of that Ranger division.
Yeah, the Rangers have definitely been on a tear. That's one of those things you definitely can't deny. But I mean, you're looking at now. The Detroit is they're fifth in the Atlantic and Toronto's second. So this is one of those games that Toronto should take. They should win in a walk. I mean,
Yeah. First mistake.
yeah.
First mistake. And whenever they get into a rut, it always includes playing a team they should beat and losing to them.
This is very,
It's
very true.
it's not like they lose to Boston and then yeah, no, the last time they played Boston was still on a major roll and they beat them. So Toronto needs to figure things out. Aaron, we talked a lot about the defense in the first period. We talked a lot about the fact that maybe Riley's not up to snuff, and maybe some players on the defense are being challenged less and maybe playing less because they're being challenged less. What about the forwards? You joked about the Croc. You joked about the Croc. He's a guy that the coach really loves. John Croc is a really good player. And they've got Matthews is not scoring at the clip that we were accustomed to seeing him score. He's not scoring in bunches, which is what he did last year. What got him to, the Rocket Richard Trophy wasn't that he scored regularly. It's that he scored often enough that it overcompensated for when he didn't score. So now what he's doing, he's scoring, probably in the same amount of games there, and he's just not tallying as many goals. What does he have to do different? Does he have to, I've given him credit for playing better defensively. Is it time for him to loosen the reins a little bit on the defense and figure out a way to, tip the scales a little bit to potting a couple of goals? Because the Leafs could do better that way. The games that they've lost recently have been in the second period. That was their big period. And recently it's like, the second period's been a nightmare for them. 4, I think, goals yesterday with the Kraken in the second period.
Well, as it currently stands, after 39 games so far this season, Austin Matthews is sitting at 45 points. That's off the pace, admittedly, since last year. He is only shooting at an 11.4% rate. That is down approximately 5.8% over last year. Last year, he was shooting at a rate of 17.2%. 2020, 2021, he was shooting at an 18.5% rate. So the number of shots that he's taken is also down this year as well. He's not taking as many shots per game, mainly because his assists are up significantly over where they were last year. So I think he's taken some focus off of his scoring and pursuing the Rocket Richard and gone more towards rounding himself out to, I don't know, maybe pursue the Art Ross or even, heaven forbid, the Hart. It's just the way that his season seems to be going. As it currently stands, though, at 45 points, he's still behind William Nylander, who's currently sitting at the top of the leaderboard with the Leafs with 45 points. So, it's a question of finding balance at this point. His shooting percentage is eventually going to come back up again. His goals will eventually catch up to or even outpace his assists. We'll see some sort of leveling off in that regard.
You know what the irony is, Aaron? The irony that because we follow the Leafs so closely, the irony is last year he was having trouble with his wrist.
Yeah.
Isn't that ironic?
I find that interesting.
And this year it doesn't. This year we don't hear that there's any problem. One has to wonder whether he is having a persistent issue with his wrist, and we're not hearing about it. It's funny because last year he had problems with his wrist, and he was scoring up a storm.
It's interesting, but I guess the priorities and focus for him has shifted this season. And again, it's a question of making yourself a more rounded player, and that I think is to everybody's advantage.
Would you then say maybe he's making an investment in preparation for the playoffs?
Either the playoffs or the expiration of his deal in a couple of years, which will lead him to even greener pastures as a free agent. It's either or. I mean, success in the playoffs would obviously help with that.
Oh, that'd help his contract quite a bit. Mm-hmm. Because right now his contract speaks to regular season performance, not playoff performance.
Yeah.
You know, the one guy that has had consistent great playoff performances is William Nylander. You know, the poster child for trade him, trade him, trade him.
Oh, that
Right,
broken record again. Oh,
right. You know what I mean? I'm not
yeah.
saying do that. I'm just saying, you know, he's you know, actually, I got to say this in the last 2 games ago, and I didn't see the game last night. I had a family function to go to. But in the previous game before that, I saw him lollygagging a little bit. He was doing a little of his old William Nylander thing. And I don't mean to suggest that, you know, that's the reason why they're losing, because that's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is the consistent play that he's shown over the past, you know, long time in this season, geez, at least a couple of months, where I haven't seen him lollygag at all. And he did it in the other game 2 games ago that I saw him when he doesn't seem to want to come back, and he's just, you know, um, I'm wondering if that's a team malaise that's going running through the team, and that's what I was trying to get at in the earlier section when we talked about the game, is that all it takes is for a player to take it easy, and that affects the line. And if the line is affected, how much longer is it before the other lines are affected? And hockey and team sports are so symbiotic, right? There has to be this machine like symmetry that when a team doesn't have it, you have what's happening to the Leafs right now. And it can come, you know, the monkey in the works, you know, the gum up the works can come from the goaltender, can come from the defenseman, or it can come from a forward. In other words, it's not easy to point your finger at where the problem begins, or how to solve it. And that's why I don't make as much money coaching the Leafs as the guy they actually pay to coach the Leafs. So I think what it comes down to is, I guess what I'm saying is, this is a coach's responsibility. The coach has done a great job. You know, we've talked about the coach very well. And I think maybe this is where coaching has to come in, where there's this inconsistent play. He's doing his best discussing the problems. He's not lost his cool like he did previously this season. Um, I think we're going to see him lose his cool one of these games. If and I don't mean in a real horrible way, just mean he's gonna step over the line a little bit, and maybe like it did last time, Aaron. That's what started him on this great run that the Leafs were on for this protracted period.
Not going to lie, key word here, as it always has been for these Maple Leafs, is accountability.
Yeah. Well, that should be with everybody, and in
Yeah.
sports it does exist. I know they make millions, but still, if you want to win, and you're not talking about future contract. You're not talking about looking good. You're talking about winning. Accountability is very important.
Most definitely. Everybody's got to pull their own weight.
Absolutely. Let's go over to the CFL. The Bombers Inc. Offensive lineman Stanley Bryant. What a great player.
Oh, this is a fantastic signing for them. I'm glad they managed to get that done. Um, so, it's one of those things where actually after last season, he became one of the most decorated linemen in Blue Bombers in CFL history. I think it's this fourth time that he got the most outstanding offensive lineman, which is fantastic news for him.
And the Argonauts signed 3 American defensive backs.
Looking to bulk up a little bit. They've actually signed, they signed TJ Hassel, Chris Moore, and Quantez Stiggers. Hassel played for Winnipeg in 2022 and got 2 special teams tackles. Then you have the rest of the gentlemen who have spent some time with the Baltimore Ravens. And Stiggers played in the Fan Control Football League, where he was the league's youngest player, but that didn't stop him from leading the league in interceptions with 5. So
the Elks re-signed. Oh, sorry.
It's just an interesting cast of characters that they brought on.
Yeah, the Elks signed global kicker Gaglione and 2 others.
So they signed Gaglione as well as Richard Causey Jr., a defensive back, and CJ Sims, a wide receiver. Raphael returns to Edmonton after spending last season on their practice roster. He's from Sao Paulo, drafted 17th in 2022. The other gentleman, Rashad Causey Jr., played last season with the Tampa Bay Bandits of the USFL. And CJ Sims recently completed his college career by winning the RMAC Special Teams Player of the Year award. So a little bit of bolstering going on all around, taking a shot on some younger players.
Lions part ways with defensive back Luchez Purifoy.
That
was
did
a
you see
surprise.
this one coming, Frank? Just out of interest?
No, didn't see it coming.
It was one of those things. He signed as a free agent in February of 2022 in 18 games. The 30-year-old had 55 tackles on defense and another 9 on special teams. He's played with the CFL before. He started with them in 2016 and 2017, then played in Ottawa. No other real reason I don't think was given concerning Luch's decision to leave the team, but I guess we'll have to keep an eye on that to see if there's any developments in the next few
Could always be money. Stampeder Sedani suspended 2 games for performance-enhancing drug violation. And, well, the league and the teams hope he learned his lesson about this. Let's go to the NFL, and it appears Damar Hamlin, the Buffalo Bill that everyone knows, he's breathing on his own, thank goodness.
Yeah, he also managed to join a FaceTime meeting with his teammates. He's spoken with them. Actually, when he first came out of being unconscious, the first thing he asked was, "Did we win?" So the good news is his foundation has now passed $7 million worth of donations, and the NFL is committed to again making donations for his jersey sales, which have been number one for a while now, as a donation towards his care and towards his charities.
The NFL rules the Bills-Bengals game as a no contest, which means the AFC title game could be a neutral site game, as you know, the owners vote on the inequities of what happened of canceling that game.
Yeah, I mean, the NFL decided that it was okay to cancel the game, I guess, in part because it doesn't affect whether or not the Bills and the Bengals would make the playoffs or not. The only thing that it really affects is where the AFC title game is going to be.
Yeah, the home game.
2 neutral sites would be interesting.
Yeah, that
one for
sounds
the AFC
really...
title game and then one for the Super Bowl. It could be really interesting.
Yeah. We have the bronze medal. U.S. beat Sweden, but more importantly, let's talk about Canada edging Czechia after and they got revenge on losing in that first round.
Yeah, so Dylan Gunter played the hero in overtime. Believe it or not, it was actually his first even strength goal in the entire tournament. Every goal that Gunter had so far had been on the power play. Now, it's been over a decade since a Canadian team has won back-to-back junior goals. And before that, it was Canada getting 5 consecutive between 2005 and 2009. The heyday of Tavares, Taves, Marchand, Doughty, Giroux, and Price.
All those folks.
Yeah.
Well,
quick
congratulations.
Turnaround for them too.
Yeah, they had a slow start. The world ended when Czechia beat them in that first round, but they made up for it. And it seemed they kept improving to the point where even the bigger the game, the bigger the difference. And, I know they won in overtime against the U.S. No, they won 4-1 against them. Yeah, they did. They played really well at the end. They were dominating the teams that were left standing. Amazing. Great work on their part. Let's talk about the Habs and the Rangers met the Habs. What happened there?
Well, it didn't go well. The Rangers handed the Habs their 7th straight loss with a 4-1 win. Philip Cheadle scored 2 goals. Chris Kreider and Braden Shen also scored for the Rangers, who have now won 3 in a row. And their goalie Yaroslav Halak had 17 saves. Joel Armia was the only guy that scored for Montreal, and Jake Allen managed to stop 27 of 31 shots. Now, they were even throughout the first period. 10 shots between the 2 teams and scoreless. It wasn't until 7:43 in the second period that Chris Kreider finally managed to break open the scoring.
Oilers snapped 2-game skid.
I got to wonder how any team that has McDavid and Draisaitl on it ends up having a losing skid of any sort. But they did manage to beat the Islanders 4-2. Home ice finally appeared to be an advantage for them. They had a rough go of it at home lately, not winning many goals there. Yamamoto, Holloway, and Hyman also scored for the Oilers. and McDavid and Brian Nugent-Hopkins both had 2 assists, while Jack Campbell made 20 saves.
How are the Canucks doing? They were entertaining a bit of a skid
Yeah,
themselves.
they actually managed to beat the team that the Leafs beat just recently, the Colorado Avalanche. It
0 for
has
2 in
not been a
Canada.
kind road trip. It's not been a kind road trip.
Not at all. The Predators, Juuse Saros records 64 saves and win over the Hurricanes. I want to repeat that: 64 saves.
This is one of those moments. It was absolutely fantastic. The Canes had 67 shots on goal, and Saros saved 64 of them, in on the way to a 5-3 win. So that sort of single-handed mission of a team by a goaltender. The only goalies I think to get more than that were a gentleman by the name of Ron Tugnut back in 1991, Mario Lessard, and I
He
think
was a Nordic.
yeah,
Yeah.
and Joe Daly. I think are about the only other people to get as many saves as that. So that's really rarefied air for UC Saros. Hopefully, this turns into a bit of a run for them.
Junior captain Canada Wright has been sent to the Kingston Frontenacs by the Seattle Kraken. They're giving him a reset, I guess.
It looks like I know that he didn't have a good time of it when he was first up with Seattle at the start of the year. So they sent him down to Kingston. He improved his play, played really well for Kingston. Oh my gosh. And then, after tournament, they said, yeah, we're going to let you continue to season right there. Ron Francis said that Wright has a bright future with the team. And he's actually looking more forward to seeing him compete for a Memorial Cup as opposed to playing with the Kraken this year.
And put some distance between him and his bitterness of his bad luck at the draft, or he really didn't like sliding down the ratings and in the draft. It was something that he didn't handle it well. I think we all knew that from the beginning. Word was that he was really bitter about it. And let's remember something, the kid's 19 now,
Yeah,
19.
he just turned 19.
So, let's keep that in mind. Let's talk about the All-Star game with the last minute week, Brad.
Sure. So they actually finally released the preliminary rosters for the 2023 All-Star Game. Not a lot of surprises in there. For the Atlantic, you've got Linus Ullmark in goal, Tage Thompson, Dylan Larkin, Matthew Tkachuk, Nick Suzuki, Brady Tkachuk, Steve Stamkos, and Mitch Marner. For the Metropolitan, there's Svechnikov, Gaudreau, Hughes, Nelson, Igor Shesterkin of New York Rangers, Kevin Hayes, Sidney Crosby, and of course Alex Ovechkin, who I believe is already sitting out his 1-game suspension for not showing up. In the Pacific Division, there's Troy Terry, Nazem Kadri from the Flames, Connor McDavid, Kevin Fiala, Carlson, Matty Beniers, Elias Pettersson, and Logan Thompson, the goalie from the Golden Knights. And in the Central Division, Clayton Keller, Seth Jones, Cale Makar, Jason Robertson, Kirill Kaprizov, UC Saros from the Preds, Vladimir Tarasenko, and Josh Morrissey. Now, starting the 12th of January, fans, if you tweet a player's full name, like, say, William Nylander, with the hashtag NHL All-Star Voting, that will count as well towards seeing additional players added. Don't start yet. It doesn't start until 12:01 a.m. on the 12th of January.
Okay, Aaron, I will have to leave it there. Thank you for doing this.
Not a problem, Frank. Thanks for having me.
All right, he's Aaron William Freeland. You're welcome. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching Candid Frank Live, airing Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For Candid Frank Live, other news, entertainment, and sports programming we offer, please check out SpanglishWorld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Ciao for now.